Hi everyone, and welcome back to my channel. I know it's been a while, but I'm back and I'm excited to talk about a very important topic today, and it's all about how to answer very common interview questions on the interview trail. And this is going to be for any interview, which includes medical school interviews as well as residency interviews. A lot of the questions are very common. They are all kind of trying to get the same kind of characteristic traits out of you and get to know you a lot better. So they are all very common. So that's what we'll be talking about today. Now, if you're new to my channel, welcome. I am a dermatology resident. I give advice about the medicine journey based on my own life experiences. Then my channel is for anyone who's thinking about or currently training in medicine. If this sounds like something you're interested in, be sure to subscribe to my channel now. Also, if you want to get to know me a little bit better, make sure to follow me on Instagram at therealskinimin_MD. All right, so let's get started. I know I'm dressed really casual today to be talking about such a serious topic, but I do want you guys to feel very at ease as I just talk about these questions, just to make it a more relaxed environment, just because I know that interviews are nowhere near relaxing. All right, so the first question that I'm going to talk about is a very common question that you're definitely going to get as a med school applicant and a residency applicant, and it's going to be, tell me about yourself. So how do you answer that question? Really, the way you answer that question is by, one, making sure that it's brief and to the point, but two, it highlights different aspects of who you are. So when I answered this question, I made sure to start from childhood, and then I went all the way up to where I was in medical school. But of course, it was very brief, no more than 2 minutes. And what I talked about included my family structure, a little bit of my hobbies, and some challenges that I faced, and really how I got interested in medicine. Interviewers love to know, like, are you a middle child, an only child, an oldest child? How did this dynamic, shape who you are? What challenges you experienced growing up? What highlights in your life helped to shape you to who you are? Things that aren't commonly found on the application. This is a great time to include this, but once again, remember, you don't want to bore your interviewer. The next question is, why do you want to be a doctor? And for those of you who are applying to residency, you're definitely going to be asked why you want to be a specific kind of doctor. So if it's internal medicine, a dermatologist, plastic surgeon, whichever one. So of course, when you're answering this question, you want to say why you want to be a doctor or why you want to be this specific kind of doctor. And you're really just going to find traits in yourself that make you a great fit for that type of doctor or for a doctor in general. It's relatively, I think, one of the easier questions, but you definitely want to make sure that you're identifying traits with yourself that make you a great fit to be a doctor and or to be a specific type of doctor, like I said, if you are doing residency interviews. Another question is to list your weaknesses and strengths and just talk a little bit more about it. So strengths, I think, are easier to answer. Identify, as you're practicing for your interviews, you want to identify strengths in yourself, but also identify weaknesses. And even though you are identifying weaknesses, you still do not want to show yourself in a very poor light. So you don't want to say things like, you're lazy, you're often late, you're not trustworthy. Those aren't great weaknesses. You want to use weaknesses that show that you can acknowledge the negative things about you, but also when you list those weaknesses, you want to also say how you are working on it. That's what I did when I talked about my weaknesses and how I'm working on it. So for example, if your weakness is public speaking, you can just say like how you're working on public speaking, things like that. Another question where they're really trying to get to know you is, tell me about when you had a disagreement with a coworker, a supervisor, a teacher, or some kind of superior. And what they're trying to get from that question is how you handle conflict, especially when a superior is involved, and what did you learn from that experience? So things that you don't want to do is talk negatively about people. You want to make sure that you highlight what you learned from the experience. So key things is to show what you learned from the experience and also illustrate how you properly handle conflict. And if you didn't handle conflict well, then just talk about how you learned from that. That's really the key from that kind of question. Another question is, why should we choose you for your program? This is a question you should definitely be prepared for. Before you go for that interview, you should have already done a lot of research on the program you're applying to. If you know people from that program, reaching out to them prior to your interview so you can identify the strengths of that program, or even the weaknesses of that program, where you can add to, or where you fit in with their mission. If for example, you love global health, you can say, I love global health, this is what I'm interested in, and this is why I'm interested in, if I was to go into your medical school program, I would love to be part of your global health program. Just examples like that. You want to know a lot about the program. You also want to show that you put in time in researching about the program as well. So now there's something where it's called like personality questions, where interviewers like to throw fun questions at you, but they're still trying to assess your personality. So they'll ask you, if you were a cookie, what kind of cookie would you be? If you were a superhero, what kind of superhero would you be? What would your friends say about you? This almost goes back into your strengths, where, like I said, as you're preparing for interviews, you should list out strengths and characteristics and traits that you want the interviewers to know about you. And this is a great time to identify those strengths, and then just, you're really gonna have to be kind of on the spot and figure out how you can tie those into those personality questions. So really, for that question, you want to just think about the highlighted traits you want to portray to the interviewer and link it to whatever you choose in those questions. So believe it or not, we already reviewed 6 questions. So we can do a total of 10, reviewing 10 questions. So here are some bonus questions. You might get asked, how do you define success? Of course, you want to be as honest as possible, but think about an all-rounded answer to that question. So not just, I define success as becoming a doctor, but just like, what do you define success in your whole entire life? Like, what does that look like hobbies-wise? What does that look like where you're living? Just think about having a more all-rounded answer to that, because once again, the interviewers are trying to get to know you as a person, and you want to use these questions to allow them to get to know you as more than just that application they have on their computer screen. Another question you might get is, if you don't get into medical school, enter the residency specialty of your choice, what is your backup plan? Make sure you have an answer for that. I don't know if there's actually a right or wrong answer to that. I know that a lot of people say, like, if I don't get into dermatology, I'll just apply again. Another question that I know I definitely got is both med school and interview question, and in both med school and residency interview questions is, tell me where you see yourself in 5 to 10 years. So make sure you have an answer to that. This almost also goes along the lines of like, how do you decide, define success? You should have a goal for yourself and a future for yourself, and have a nice answer for that. I don't think you should talk about money in regards to those kind of questions. Like I said, you want to be more all-rounded. What you might be doing as a physician. So maybe you want to open up your own practice, or maybe you want to be doing global health. You want to be including all of those into your answers. The 10th question that you are most likely going to get on your interview trail is a lot of the controversial or ethical questions. My biggest tip is to go online and just review them and practice them. Whatever question you get, make sure you stick to that answer and just have a reason for why you said that answer. Even on the interviews, they might try to be like, but why would you say that? You want to make sure that your answer, that you don't try to like sway your answers. Just pick an answer and just go from there. When it comes to ethical questions, my biggest tip is to always try to give the answer that is going to benefit the most people. That's like the best tip. But a lot of these questions, those kind of questions also don't have a right answer. So those are all my tips. Hopefully this was helpful for anyone who is going through the interview process. If you have any questions about the interview process, you want me to elaborate on something a little bit more, let me know. You know, I'm always here to answer your questions, and I hope you enjoyed this. I have a whole bunch of other videos about interviews. Make sure you check them out. I think that once you go through a lot of my videos, you'll be very prepared for your interview trail. If this was helpful, make sure to press that like button. If you have any questions or any comments, make sure to leave them down below. And I hope to see you guys again at my next video. I love chatting with y'all. Have a good one. Bye.